Hi, here I have recorded on a sample demonstration on how to integrate with API Gateway with AWS Lambda function and rendering the static HTML page from the AWS CloudFront. Here I have created two APIs in API Gateway, that is user details and the user login, and Lambda functions like the user details and user login, two different Lambda functions. Created one bucket in S3 content delivery network, and all the objects are public. So in that bucket, I have uploaded few objects, that is index.html, which contains our HTML page with login functionality, and the two images, user.jpg images. All these objects are public. For this S3 bucket, I have created a CloudFront distribution. In CloudFront, I have created distribution for the S3 bucket with this domain name. So now I'm creating a new distribution. Delivery method will be a web, that is we are going to render our HTML page. So here our domain name will be S3 bucket name, and leaving rest of the settings as it is. Click on create distribution. So here new distribution is created. So distribution is creating is in progress. So already I have created distribution. So from this I'm going to access it. It's the distribution for S3 bucket. So first we see how to create a API gateway. So I've created an API user login with the resource /login will be my resource, and with the get method. So in this get method, I'm going to add the method request. So I'm not going to pass any query parameters or path parameters in this, since I'm going to render only the HTML page. So leaving these configurations as it is, and no headers will be passed. And in the integration request, I'm going to integrate this API with the AWS Lambda function. So my integration type is going to be Lambda function. So here also no path parameters and query parameters. So the API timeout will be the default timeout. This will be 2900 milliseconds. So here I have created the method response that will be 302 with temporary redirect, as I'm going to render the HTML page from this API gateway endpoint. So I have created the 302 header. So this is my header name, that will be location. This is the attribute that I'm going to return it from the Lambda function. In the integration response, so I have already created the 302 method response. So for that, I'm going to have the mapping. In this, for header mapping, same location attribute I'm going to use it, and my mapping value will be integration.response.body.location. So this is the response body.location will be the value that I will be given from the Lambda function. And in the mapping template, I'm going to describe the content type, that is going to be HTML. So for that HTML, the generic template will be input.path. So whatever the inputs we are passing it, and the outputs returned from the Lambda function will be passed through this one. So this is the content handling. So this is simple pass through. So the value written from the Lambda function will be passed to the API gateway and return it. So that's it. Our Lambda API gateway is created. So we have integrated. So now we will write our Lambda function. So the user login. So I have created a Lambda function user login. In this function, just I have written a small logic to return our HTML page from the CloudFront. So location attribute which we are going to use it. I'm going to add the trigger for this Lambda function. So whenever we hit this API gateway, we need to call this Lambda function. So already we have configured the which Lambda function to be called for this API gateway endpoint. So now I'm going to configure the Lambda function. So my trigger will be API gateway. Need to configure it. So in the API gateway already have few APIs. So in that I'm going to set the user login API, and the deployment will be development. And security access will be my IAM role. And save. Now the API gateway trigger is added to the Lambda function, and also AWS Cloud as logs is configured. So we can also test our Lambda function. After click on test, the Lambda function will be executed and response is returned. So this will be the response object will be returned from the Lambda function. So now we have created the Lambda function and the API gateway. Now I am going to deploy the API gateway. Development. So I will be getting the API gateway endpoint. Going to copy this. So our path will be login. So now the API gateway renders our CloudFront with login page.